Okay, I want to show you how to use the timeline using Kibana. Okay, so first off, you have to start that off. So that would be I've got this in my memory, so I'm going to just so that would be Kibana. So I start off Elasticsearch. And I need to do the same thing with Kibana. I'll just edit that command line. Okay, now you can then just access it, and you need to enter, so it's a web server running from localhost, so you just enter localhost colon 5601. Yeah, is that right? Yeah, that looks about right. It tells me it's not ready yet. I can just go full screen, and I'll go back to here, and you can type status to see how a service is getting on. So it kind of looks ready to me now, so let's try that again. Okay, now I've set this all up already with a timeline, and I want to show you that. Okay, so let's go full screen with that, and basically I want to go for a dashboard which I've already created. Okay, and this would be the timeline for Donald. Now when it starts off, you'll see no results found. You have to click, you have to change the time, so you go to absolute. I am actually going to go to 09, and I'm going to choose that time. And now you can see a few bits of activity. You can see an awful lot of entries. This is around about 2009. So so that's that. Now I also want to see the events. For that I have to go to edit. I have to add, and I have to add a saved search. And this is the logged timeline search. So I'm just going to add that. And then get rid of that. Okay, and you can see the thing down here. I need to grab that, make it full screen. Okay, and then I can collapse this again. Okay, I'll make this a little bit smaller so that I can see more of this, and pull that down to the bottom. Oops. Okay, so this is my timeline. Now there's a few things you can do. First of all, you can choose to change. I might be interested in this particular time interval, right? So you can highlight that. Okay, and you move the mouse over the region you want. Let's say I want both of those regions. I'd move up to there. So now it'll redraw all of that. Okay, so you saw those are the 2009 events. Those are the 2013 events, and here is your list of events. So for example, the very first item here is on, the very last item actually is on the 21st of February at 33 minutes past 8 o'clock. Okay, 2033. Alright, so that's that. Now it also shows you the events here. This looks like nearly all registry events. And then there are link files, there are files. Now a lot of these are fairly small, you can't see them. As you can imagine, there's 150,000 events here, so 50,000 there. So if there did happen to be one event here, you're not even going to see it. Okay, at the moment we can only see 50 events, and we could move back to them. Obviously that's going to take a long time if you wanted to do that. So what I propose instead is to do let's do a search. Now it depends on what you were asked, but let's say that we know this is Donald's machine, and we know there was a picture on it of a duck that had some writing on it, and it looked like that was based on the duck that had been downloaded. So we just want to see, let's say we just want to see that. So we go to, we do a search for duck. Now you have to type duck star. And that will show you everywhere that duck occurred. Now you can see no ducks here at all at this particular time. So that's fine. So maybe we can ignore everything outside of this range, say up here. So again, we put the cursor over the time range that we want, and we zoom in. Now, I couldn't find any way to zoom out of this. So if you want to change the times, you have to go back up here, click on that, and enter your date and time. Okay, so now we've seen, so here are the events. We can see that these are web history, so there was some web history activity here. And we have, this blue is link files, so these particular artifacts, log files here, and here is some more web history. Okay, so let's, we can now get rid of that maybe, and hit the return key, and so now we go back. Now this is interesting. You notice there was some web history here that has disappeared, completely disappeared. I wonder what happened. Let's go back and type duck star and see if we can work out what happened. Okay, so there's some activity on the 31st of the 2nd. Now there's not very many of them. Well, in fact, it'll tell you there, the count there is 7 items. If you go back to this, there's just 2 items on that chart, so there's not very many. And if I get rid of the duck, you can see there's 30,000 items there, so whatever item is here is completely disappeared. It's swamped by the 30,000 because 7 items are just not going to make it here. So it's something you need to be aware of. But let's say we want to see. The one problem I have now is that the duck.gif file, this timeline, I did not include the actual times from the files themselves. So this is a bit of a problem. So I don't, unless I go back and look at the duck file, I can't tell when it was modified from, but I can still tell quite a bit. So let's go back to duck star, and I just want to actually, let's just have a look at these files here, okay, and let's have a see what's going on there. So I want to look at those, and there's 9 items altogether, okay, 2 on the 17th and 7 on the 18th of February. Okay, and let's have a look, and if you look at those, you can see these are actually all expiration times, and they are, that's interesting. So there's an expiration time for this file, and generally expiration times are not associated with user activity. So let's go back, since I can't, I want to go back to the previous time. I'm just going to go back, say I go up to 1. Okay, so and let's see, I want to get rid of that. Maybe if I click on that, yeah, okay. So then, so these are the times here that I'm interested in. Well, actually those are only the duck times. Let's have a quick look and get rid. Sorry, I should go back here again then and have a look at these things. So this is, I'd forgotten that I was only looking for ducks here. So let's update that. And now I see some more, and again it's all web history. So there are 30 items there. If I have a quick look through all that, they all seem to be expiration times. Yeah, so they're all expiration times. And expiration times are often just things when things expire, so not necessarily associated with user activity. Okay, so let's go back here and let's go back to January. I'll change the 2 to a 1. I click go and I click that to get rid of it. Okay, so now we are interested in this period here and see what's going on. And we can see, okay, Okay, again we have at the very end here we have a set of expiration times. So these are oh no, and also remember that there's 8,000 events here, so if there's small events. So let's have a quick look. It's just the January the 24th. Okay, and the first few items we're seeing are expiration time. So for example, here's a cookie, and this website created a cookie and gave it an expiration date. So just because your cookie is expiring at the time does not mean that a user did something. Let's look in a bit more detail at this point, and we can see there's quite a few activities here. Okay, we're up to 1,000 there, so let's skip out him. Let's see if we can just do those guys. Oops. Okay, and you can see some interesting activity here. Okay, so the largest is about 800. Now you can see a lot of detail of what's going on here. Now just have a quick look at the time to get an idea. We're talking about 1724 up to 1732. And what's interesting here is that if we have a look at this here, so for example, January the 23rd, 2013, 1731, we've content modification time for software. This means this was last modified, this file was last modified at this time, 1731. Now this is a registry file, so the registry is made up of a number of files including software, ntuser.dat, so that's one of them, default is another one, SAM is another one, default, and they've all got exactly the same last modification time. And that would normally indicate that this is the last time the system was shut down. So this is interesting to note. Now here's a registry key. Okay, so all these were file modification times, all the previous ones. Okay, so these files here, they're probably mostly file modification times, where the registry files were shut down. And then we have registry entries. And that looks like to be it. So you can see that round about this. Now remember, this is 1731, so this period here is just 1 second, right? And all these activities occurred, all these files were shut down. Okay, so you see all these ones. You see there's something called external entry count. I don't know what that is. Looks like it's something to do with a random number generator. So, but it's just a registry key. I don't need to know much about it except that it was modified then. We have more registry keys, more registry files at least, and so on. And all these were modified just as the system was shut down. Okay, so that was probably the system actually just before it actually powered on. There's also a second earlier. You can see 1731-27 was the last shutdown time, and that was again a registry key called shutdown time. Okay, we have some printers. Now we know that the system has shut down at this point, and this was the last shutdown based on what we're seeing here. So it's not you might think, well, because we know there's not much point looking, the person probably maybe a minute or two earlier, the person probably initiated shutdown. But it's a good thing to get an idea, by looking at this, to get an idea of what other activity, whatever the registry entries are affected by shutdown. And you can see these here. There's this components is another registry file, and there is another registry key here, registry keys here. These are all being written. Okay, another registry file. So it's worth noting this. So this is 7 seconds earlier. There's another registry file being. This is a registry key actually. So registry key, you know, it's going to start off like that. Another registry key. So various registry keys there. So all this Plazo is giving us all this huge amount of information about times. It's sorting them so we can see things that are happening as they are happening. By looking at this, you can see exactly what happens on a computer as it's being shut down. So we can carry on down there, and you can see it's carry on. Now here's one of the prefetch files. This is search protocol host.exe. This is this last modification time, which means this is the last time that this file was run. Okay, again, so as part of this shutdown, these various Windows system programs are also being shut down. Here is where Donald's user.dat file is. Oh, that's right, that's a log. This is the user.dat file. So this is Donald's registry file. That's being shut down. Again, that's a number of, so it was about, was it 28 was the actual number, the seconds that the system finally shut down. So this is about 15 seconds before that. Okay, so after Donald logged out, so ntuser.dat I think is saved as Donald logs out, and it takes another 15 seconds for Windows to shut down. There's also Donald's user class.dat file, that's also part of his registry, and that is just at the same time, so presumably just as Donald logs out. Now I didn't keep the event logs, but presumably if there was an event log, it would point out that Donald had logged out at this time. Okay, and there's another registry key here. I don't know what that is, but it looks like it's something to do with Donald's registry, and again it's at the same time. So if you were writing a report on this, you would just look these up beforehand and make sure they correspond to what you think. Okay, so that's all that. This is 1731, so round about there. So that's the 10, so that's presumably a lot of these events, the registry keys being saved. So now we can look in a little bit more detail of what's happening here, and we can carry on to here. Now I'm more interested in knowing just have a quick look for DuckStar. Now if you remember, we didn't actually see anything the last time, but that's because there were so many events in one place, but here we can see that Duck was actually modified. Here's an interesting one. Let's see what that is. That's actually the latest, and there's just one event. It's in the registry, and that's here. Remember, the last event is going to be the first item on your table down here. There's 23 events altogether. This is the last one, and you can see it's a registry key. You can see that again there, so it's a very nice way of presenting the data. And you can see that this is a registry key indicating that paint, recent file, so paint was used to save this. Okay, so this is updated here, and you can see that Microsoft Paint was used to edit it. So this looks like, this is one of the clues indicating that Microsoft Paint was used to edit this file. Right, then a little bit before that, you see that was 30. Okay, so 2 seconds before that, we have web history, and this is that strange thing that the Microsoft web history is used when it's actually just visiting a file. So we see here, because the File Explorer browsing on the local disk stores things in the index.dat, we can see the time that this was accessed, and we can see there were 3 hits. And here this looks like this looks like the same entry again. Okay, it's the same. No, it's a different file. Yeah. So the entry appears in the global index.dat, but also the history for that day. Okay, now these files can be deleted, but the history for that day stores the same record. Okay, so we have 2 bits of evidence from this one activity of Donald accessing this file. Okay, and the total number of times that he's accessed that file is 3. So you get a lot of information here. We have also recent docs. So Explorer keeps a record of recent docs, and that's updated at the same time. That's actually a second earlier. So there's web history and there's the registry entries, and there is a file entry. Okay, so we have there's another registry entry. Now this is a shell bags item, I think. So a shell item. Well, not actually. This looks like a folder. Link file. So it's in the registry. It's a key that's stored, and it stores information about the. Oh yeah. So it tells you what it's storing. The path is duck, but the shell item is duck.link. So it's recent docs. Explorer has a recent docs thing, so you can see which files were recently accessed by Explorer. So you can see a lot of items there, and all these individual artifacts point to the duck being clicked. Because MS Paint its recent items was accessed, you're assuming the most obvious conclusion is that Paint was used to access this. But let's move further back. So this is again this entry, is it? We've just seen that. How come it's appearing again? So there's content modification time. Oh yeah, so this is the last check time. So there's 2 times in here, and one is a second before the other. There's a last check time, and there is last visitor time. So there's a last check time and last visitor time. But anyway, so there's a number of artifacts in the index.dat file pointing to this. So some duplication. Obviously, if you're presenting this in a report, you'd only show the most recent one. Then there is another file, and this is the actual link file. Okay, and it's the content modification of the link file. So again, the content modification of the link file usually indicates the last time it was accessed. At least it was accessed using the File Explorer program on Windows. Okay, there's an open save dialog, so that usually indicates that Explorer did something like offer you a way of opening the file. For example, you might open the file using Chrome or MS Paint, or if there's another Paint program on your computer, you get a choice of which one to enter. So but again, this is just a theory. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. If you were presenting a report, you'd examine that in detail. Okay, and we can go back. There are lots of artifacts. Oh yeah, now this is interesting. This is a recovered entry. So usually what happens is that index.dat is going to keep data on the different visits. But when a new visit happens, it deletes the old entry. So this is an entry that was in the index.dat file and recovered. At least that's my reading of it at the moment. And again, you'd want to check that before you put that into a report. So there you have the same. This also happens where there was just one hit. And again, and all those are very similar entries. The times are slightly different, which looks like, could be a few things happening there. I'm not 100% certain, but it could be that Donald clicked on the file 3 times. You don't need to say that in a report, but that's sort of what that looks like here. And here's a Windows prefetch. Remember, prefetch tells you what files were executed. So it looks like Internet Explorer was executed at this time. You're also given the total run. So Internet Explorer was executed 6 times on this computer, and it was just stopped there. Then you have another index.dat entry. So and that was a recovered entry. So you can see there's a fair amount of duplication. Anyway, that's in that second. Now, so we can see exactly what happens with duck there. So now let's say what is interesting. It looks like something definitely happened around about 1727. So let's say zoom in. And when did it stop? When was the so this was the MS Paint entry, and that was 1731. Okay, so we've 1727, 1731. So let's just select just this time interval. But we want to get rid of the duck. Okay, and that gives us all these items. Again, there's 15, so we can clearly see everything that's happening. So let's now do a search for, let's try star paint. Oops, actually, let's just try paint star. Now remember, you have to have the star, but this, so this does come up with something. So you have your paint ribbon, paint values. So that was stored. Remember, we're only looking at a period of a couple of seconds here, and you have your recent file list saying it's non. Okay, so this is just looking for paint. Now it just happens that sometimes the entry is MS Paint, so we should really do star paint, and so that might come up with slightly more. And let's look in the prefetch directory and source long win prefetch. So this should tell us when paint was run. There it is. MS Paint is run. It's in Windows prefetch and it was executed up at this point. Okay, so again, let's go back. So that's 1728 and refresh that. So there's 1728. So that was the entry there. So we know that paint was run at this time, and I think it was at 1730 that around about 1730 that the recent docs image was started. Okay, so it's we can zoom in maybe about here, and we can just you can just see a few times there. So there was paint executed, some paint settings because you're running paint, so these are all indicators that paint was run. And so there's the Windows prefetch, and there are user assist also gets modified when a file is run. So this is another way of checking that paint was run. Now it doesn't actually mention paint here. It doesn't decrypt, but this. So here we're getting the ROT13 encoded because user encrypt does that. But that's almost certainly telling us that this was Microsoft Paint was run. So if you wanted to use that in your report, you'd have to run a program that decrypts user assist. So we have got the fact that various registry entries were modified, indicating that paint was run. We've got the prefetch and we've got the user assist. All these things are telling us that paint was run, which is quite nice to know. Now I'm just going to kind of speed ahead, sort of cheat a little, because when I looked at the Windows machine, I noticed around about 1725 or so there was some Chrome history. So let's go back out and go up to let's go to 1721 and do a search for actually maybe a star in front of that in case sometimes it's called Google Chrome, and source long web hist. Okay, so I only want to look in Oh yeah, okay, so that didn't work. Source, it's actually source short, I think, is in. Okay, so there's some web history for Chrome. So round about here, if you look at this, you can see cookies, last access time. Okay, I'm more interested in, so see what, by the way, what Platzo is doing here. It's going to the Google SQLite cookies database. It's parsing it, it's extracting the last access time, and it's adding it there. So it's nicely contextualizing all this information. So I want to just run through here, and actually maybe I also want to search for searches, and just see, will this come up with Google searches? Yeah, Google searches are always very handy. Okay, now there's only 3 of them. Okay, 2 there, and you can see here is a Google search. Okay, and it was right on a picture. So you can see that the user, whoever was logged in as Donald, went to this page. This is in Donald's Chrome's history. Went to, actually first of all went to google.ie, Google Ireland, then did a search for right on a picture, and then came to this website here, which is information on right on your photos. Okay, that particular search tells you where you came from. Okay, so in the record it says you came from this search, and then that the user clicked a link. So you can see exactly what the user is doing as you're going along. You can see Google searches, by the way, are very, very handy. So if you do something like this, you know, when you're thinking about something, you do a Google search. So looking at somebody's Google searches can show you exactly what somebody is thinking. Okay, so there's your 3 entries, and you can see that somebody went to a website, they searched for writing on a picture, they and then they clicked on the duck image, start with paint, obviously, and this coincides with when the file was changed, and so it seems to be very clear. The evidence is very clear, and there are lots and lots of artifacts that support that. If there was only one artifact, you might be a little bit suspicious and you want to check it very carefully. Often though, because Windows saves so much information, there will be lots of artifacts supporting it, and so you can be reasonably confident that this is what happened, and you can make that your expert opinion in a court case. Okay, so that's Platzo. There's not much else to say about it, except you need to practice with it a lot. It's also a very handy way of finding out about artifacts. As I said, if you want to look at the shutdown time, remember, and if you want to find the shutdown time, you can just do a search for shutdown time. Let's just type shutdown time and see if that works. Nothing. Oh yeah, I need to expand my time to go up to, let's go maybe 3. Into March, click go, and click that, and there is one shutdown time. Okay, remember, if you don't put an asterisk, it's looking for this actual value. There might be other entries if you stick in a star there, and once you find that, you can get rid of this. You can just expand to around this time. Okay, expand around this time, and you can see lots of other things that happened once you get rid of your search term, and it comes up with oh yeah, the Chrome cookies happen first, and then, so I'm not sure if I've got everything there, have I? Oh yeah, oh, there's the expiration time. Remember, those aren't indicative of. However, it's a really great way to learn about artifacts. You can see, something has happened there, I wonder what that is, and you can go and look it up. So you look at the type of artifact it is, you see that here, you see the actual file, which might be temporary Internet Explorer. Oh, you can't see all of that there for some reason. It's not showing all of that. But you can use that to find out a lot about artifacts. Okay, that's all I'm going to say for the moment about Kibana.